and thank you for your time. At the conclusion of 2021, which was a very challenging and phenomenal year for different stakeholders in the supply chain, we thought it would make sense to kind of stop for a sec and think through what's going on in the supply chain and how technology can impact it and make it more efficient as we move forward. Before I go to the specific, what I want to talk about today is about a couple of things. Number one, talk about the key drivers of waste and inefficiency that we have identified in the supply chain over the last couple of years. Number two, talk about how we believe technology can facilitate a more efficient trade within the fresh produce supply chain and mitigate some of those challenges. And then number three, talk specifically about how we see the technology driving ROI and benefits for the different stakeholders in the supply chain. So 2020 and 2021, both of those years obviously have been challenging years for the industry. COVID was the first trigger of significant issues in managing the supply chain and the ability to produce high quality fresh produce along the entire supply chain. And I think the supply chain disruptions from a logistical perspective that really arose over the last 9 months significantly have had another negative impact on that supply chain. Now, as we all know, quality is the predominant driver of pricing decisions in the fresh produce supply chain. Now, that you may say that that's probably true for a lot of other industries, but what's really unique in the fresh produce supply chain is that because quality is changing on a daily basis, and the fact that the overall pricing is really driven by the quality definition, there are more than 10 to 12 inspection points along the supply chain where manual quality control transactions are taking place, right? And there is high-level examples on the bottom of that page. This is really unique. This is something that I haven't seen in many other industries. And obviously the reason is because quality is changing on a daily basis. So the fact that you've had a tomato going through a sorting machine in the middle of the packing house of a marketing company doesn't mean anything about the quality 2 days after that at the wholesaler or retailer, and obviously doesn't imply what was the quality when it was picked by the grower. Now, the unique thing in this supply chain is that while quality is as mission critical as it gets, it's actually today highly elusive to define. What we found very unique is the fact that the final price of fresh produce is actually subject to buyer's quality inspection, right? So there is a seller and there is a buyer, and while they can agree on a high level 3 or 6 months before the actual delivery date, what should be the quality spec and what is probably going to be the pricing range, the actual final price is going to be determined by the buyer doing his QC at his premises, and based on the quality that she finds, the final decision regarding price is going to be made. Now, this could have been okay if everyone was talking the same language and there were industry acceptable quality standards. The challenge is, as you know, that there are no industry acceptable quality standards. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there are no quality standards at all. It's actually the other way around, where there are too many quality standards, because effectively every buyer in this industry, whether it is a retailer, a wholesaler, or a big marketing company, each one of those players have their own quality spec for each one of their produce categories and even at the variety level. And that actually, the combination of those two phenomena is driving a situation which the industry calls quality mismatch. A quality mismatch situation is a lose-lose scenario where the seller doesn't get the price that she wants, and the buyer doesn't get the quality that he was expecting. And we found this quality mismatch situation, unfortunately, increasing significantly over the last 18 months, driven by the reasons that I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation. And what we see from customers across the entire supply chain, but mostly between marketing companies and the retailer segment, is somewhere about 5 to 7% overall rejections, and somewhere between 20 to 25% of the overall transaction are what's called price renegotiation. Now, this always has been the case, but it has exacerbated over the last couple of years. And obviously the margin of error for the traditional player in the supply chain has really slimmed down because of the fact that there are logistical challenges and issues in being able to inspect quality effectively. Everyone is talking in the industry about the 45% produce waste, and there are obviously multiple reasons for that. But what we believe is the key common denominator is actually this quality mismatch situation. There are two key drivers for this quality mismatch. Driver number one is the fact that all quality control today in all of those inspection points that I showed before is being done manually, right? Actual people, whether they are hired by the marketing company or the retailer or the wholesaler, or whether they are third party, they're making the judgment on the quality, which obviously means it is subjective, it is inconsistent, and it's also pretty slow. The other key reason for the quality mismatch is the fact that there is no real-time data. Because hypothetically, even if an inspector in Chile and an inspector who is pre-shipping a table grape shipment, and the other receiving end inspector in US port, if they both were to use a machine to inspect the quality, which means it would be objective and consistent, you still could have an issue if you didn't have information in real time. And so essentially, we're looking at an industry that we believe needs to go through standardization. There is a need to create a universal language for efficient trade in order to essentially overcome those two issues. The fact that the current QC process is subjective and inconsistent, and the fact that there is hardly any data that's being generated in real time to allow the decision makers to make decisions upon. And that's really where Cloudfruit is coming in. And I'll talk a little bit later about some of the deals that we've done with big customers in the industry. But what we've developed is a software platform that's going to allow you, the stakeholders in the supply chain, to make the quality decision based on high quality data. What do I mean by that? So on a very high level, if you think about what's happening today in the industry, we divided it into three key layers. So the QC process management, which essentially means how do you define and manage dynamically the quality specs that you want your inspector or your supplier to perform the quality check upon that. Today, it's being done fully manual, right? There are those 20, 25-page PDF books which walk through what's the quality spec for each one of your produce category, and walk through what should be the inspection process that the inspector should perform. The challenge is that those are unstructured data, so they are open for interpretation in different ways by the inspector herself or by your suppliers. We essentially have built a digital platform, and this platform allows you to design and manage the quality spec from a dashboard. The boxes that you see here on the right-hand side are essentially the mobile app screens that the inspector is going to need to go through screen by screen in order to complete an inspection. But more importantly, we've essentially invented a digital quality spec. And this digital quality spec can take any PDF that exists in the supply chain today and convert it to a very simple quality spec that can be managed from a dashboard. And that essentially should simplify the entire QC management process and essentially create common language for a seller and a buyer upon which they can perform a QC. So that's layer number one. Layer number two is data collection. We want you guys to forget about your size rings and forget about the color palettes and forget about the pen and paper that the inspector used in order to collect and store the data. And we're offering essentially the supply chain to run everything through a mobile app. And in the mobile app, you can use different technologies in order to collect the data automatically. You can leverage Clarifood's computer vision technology, which would allow you to analyze external attributes of the tomatoes, for example, behind me, the size, the color coverage, even the stem color, automatically through the computer vision. You can still use your refractometer and durometer and penetrometer or whatever industry device you have for different internal attributes, that you don't need to type the information into an Excel or a pen and paper or electronic form. You just attach it to your phone, any iOS or Android device, and all the data will be transmitted wirelessly. We enable you guys to do that. And then the third method is obviously you can always type information if there is any subjective view that the inspector needs to enter into the QC process. So essentially, we're offering the industry to take a fully manual process, the data collection one, which is obviously subjective and inconsistent because it's being performed wholly by a human being, and we automate it. And by automating it, we make it objective and we make it consistent. And obviously, it's going to be much, much faster. You should expect somewhere between 2 to 3 times higher productivity. So that's the second layer. And then the last layer, which is probably the most important one, is the actual decision-making process. Because what happens today is, you guys probably fall into the Excel camp or to the electronic form camp, right? Where you store the data. The challenge with that is twofold. Number one, you're really limited in your ability to actually share the data with other players in the supply chain, whether it's your growers or your buyers, because it's a really local platform that when you share it with other people, they don't have access to that. The second issue is that your ability to perform analytics and generate insight in real time is very limited. Why? Because the data itself that came into the system was unstructured, was entered manually per review of an inspector. Clarifood essentially introducing the industry to the big data analytics platform. Welcome to the 21st century. There is no need to send emails anymore, create your own reports. Everything is being done automatically through the platform, and also driving very specific insights that's going to allow you guys to make better decisions. And I will give a couple of examples in the next slide or two. We're doing it, we're essentially transforming this QC process that I just walked through through 3 key components. Component number 1 is a mobile app for your inspector. Your inspector can be at the field, can be at a packing house, in the inbound or intake and the pre-shipment point, doesn't matter, and can be at the port, can be at a distribution center, can even be at a front store of a retailer. Wherever the inspection is being performed, we're going to allow them to do it through any mobile device and essentially automate it. Component number 2 is the management dashboard, where the QC or the operation director can now design and manage the QC process through our dashboard. No need for those PDF, no need for emails, no need for WhatsApp. Everything is being done and controlled from that dashboard. And then the final component is the big data analytics platform that allows you guys to make decisions based on real-time information rather than intuition or experience. So just to sum it up, the way we think about the value proposition for the key players in the supply chain is in 3 key buckets. Bucket number 1, we believe that the existing technology that we have built can digitize and automate your QC process. Why do you care for that? Because you're going to accrue three key benefits. Number one, your current inspection process is going to transition from being subjective and inconsistent to objective one, right? So significantly less variance in results among whatever number of inspectors you may have. Number two, you should realize somewhere between 50 to 75% of saving of testing time and cost. Obviously, you're going to decide what you're going to do with that, whether it's realize those savings or maybe double or triple the amount of inspection in order to expand the sample size. We've seen customers do different things. And number three, you don't need anymore all of those manual PDF processes. All the quality spec and the QC processes are going to be run and managed from a cloud-based dashboard. Bucket number two, big data. You now have all of your data on one centralized database, which is cloud-based, generating real-time information, automatically generating reports and notification, and obviously insights and analytics. And I want to give you just one couple of examples, actually. So, for example, if you're a supplier, a marketing company, and you sell to 100 retailers your table grades, each one of those retailers has its own quality spec. So we can actually digitize the quality spec for each one of your retailer buyers. And when you perform an inspection in your packing hub, the Cloudfoot platform can actually tell you, hey, don't ship it to retailer A because they're likely to reject you based on the quality spec. Or both of retailer B and C are going to see it at 85 out of 100. Now, based on your ASP points, you can decide who you want to ship it to. The other example from a buyer or retailer side is the ability to perform vendor evaluation. Today, it's really challenging for any player in the supply chain to figure out what was the quality performance of a supplier vis-a-vis what was promised with the Cloudfoot platform, because you have an unparalleled database of quality spec. You can actually figure out who gave you the sweetest bricks table grapes in the last 6 months in the South Hemisphere. And obviously, the list goes on and on any metric that you may want. The last bucket is essentially optimization of the overall supply chain management. At the end of the day, digitization, automation are tools. They're tools in order to help you make better decisions and increase the profitability of your business. And we believe that by applying these AI and big data technologies into your QC process, you can not only have earlier visibility into the quality of inbound produce and a better ability to analyze your supplier performance. At the end of the day, the goal will and should be to reduce the waste or the shrink that you have within your supply chain. And that's obviously going to help everyone in the supply chain, whether it's the players themselves in terms of profitability and ultimately the end consumer from a pricing perspective. So I talked a lot about where we see the issues, how we think we can help you guys reduce a lot of those quality mismatch and ultimately drive a much more efficient supply chain. I want to move a little bit to what our customer experience. And so Cloudfoot really started to go out to the market with our solution about 15 months ago, late 2020, sorry. And one of the first big customers that we worked with was Dole Sunshine, starting out of Asia, who is the #1 pineapple and banana exporter. Dole, like similar to most of you guys and the entire industry, has been running a QC process in different points in their supply chain, which is totally manual. The challenge with that was that the actual data in order to make decision-making wasn't really accurate and consistent. And there was a significant customer claims or rejections that they were facing, and they thought that they could reduce that if they had the right data in place. We've worked with them for about 4 months at the beginning of 2021 to actually build the AI-driven solution for Pineapple. And after very successful 4 months of pilot, we've actually moved into commercial mode at the middle of 2021. And today, after about 8 months working commercially with hundreds of inspectors, I'm very proud to say that Dole has realized more than 2 times productivity improvement in terms of the actual QC process. I think more importantly, the inspection process for external attributes, and you can see an example of how the computer vision works on Pineapple, for example, has been fully automated. And Dole is currently, together with us, targeting a 10% reduction in the existing loss that they have, the rejections, within the next 24 months. So the technology works. It can be scaled very, very quickly. One of the amazing feats that happened with Dole is that the entire deployment was done remotely. That's one of the advantages of our cloud-based SaaS technology. And we've done it actually in more than 16 customers over the last 9 months. We've been fortunate and lucky to partner with some of the biggest names in the industry, as I mentioned, starting with Dole, throughout Mucci Farms in US, Zespri, some Lucar, Pink Lady, and a bunch of other players across Latin America and Europe. We've also started to work with 4 today of the top 20 retailers globally, and we'll be able to share more details on that, I think, towards the middle of the year. Just to conclude this quick presentation, at the end of the day, our vision is to help the entire supply chain standardize the way quality is evaluated. If we go back to the issues that we discussed before, the biggest common denominator for the waste is quality mismatch. So how are we going to solve it? We're going to solve it by doing 2 things. Number one, allowing you guys to automate the actual data collection process. So the decision-making regarding the quality is being done in an objective and consistent way. And number 2, generate real-time information with insights. So each one of the players in the supply chain, whether it's a Lima Grain or a grower or a Dole a marketing company, wholesaler, retailer, and even the regulators. We're already working, by the way, with the state of Israel and later and down the road with the OECD to digitize the quality spec of their entire nations. That's going to essentially create a common language to how you evaluate quality. And we believe is going to be instrumental in reducing the waste that is taking place in the supply chain today. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to open the floor to anyone who wants to ask any questions. Okay, so I don't see any questions coming up. So thank you for your time, guys. Feel free to reach out and follow up with me at elad@clarifoods.com with any questions, and we're looking forward to seeing you in one of the industry conferences later this year. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.